The crisp manila envelope felt heavier than a tombstone in my hands. Inside lay a single sheet of paper that would either confirm my worst fears or label me a paranoid monster. For 10 years, my life with Sarah and our son Leo had been my masterpiece. We were the couple everyone envied, the family that radiated a warmth so genuine it felt like a physical presence. But for the last 6 months, a creeping cold had seeped into the foundations of our home. It started subtly. Sarah, my vibrant, open-hearted Sarah, became a ghost in our marriage. Her laughter, once the soundtrack of my life, was replaced by the quiet tap, tap, tap of her fingers on her phone screen, which she angled away from me whenever I entered a room. The late nights at the office became more frequent, her excuses more elaborate and less convincing. I was a man drowning in slow motion, and the water was the silence she surrounded herself with. The conflict began not with a bang, but with a name: Daniel. I saw it flash on her locked phone screen one night as she slept, a simple message that read, "Did you handle it?" My blood ran cold. I didn't want to be that guy, the husband who snoops, who lets jealousy curdle his love into suspicion. But the doubt was a poison, and it had already taken root. I started looking, and what I found was a trail of breadcrumbs leading me further into a forest of deceit. Credit card statements showed lunches at fancy restaurants I wasn't invited to, mysterious cash withdrawals, and a recurring payment to a private legal firm. When I confronted her, she unleashed a fury I'd never seen. She called me controlling, insecure, pathetic. She twisted my genuine concern into an accusation, making me the villain in a story I didn't understand. She cried, and I, the fool, comforted her, apologizing for my own sanity. But the final, undeniable crack in our perfect facade was Leo, our son. He was my world, a bright, funny, kind-hearted boy with my dark curly hair and my crooked smile. But as I looked closer, fueled by suspicion, I couldn't see a single trace of Sarah in him. Not in his bright blue eyes, not in his sharp jawline, not in the way he tilted his head when he was thinking. For 10 years, I'd brushed it off. Genetics are a funny thing, right? Now it felt like a glaring neon sign pointing to the affair I was sure she was having. The thought was a physical blow. Leo wasn't mine. The pain was so immense, so all-consuming, that I knew I couldn't live with the uncertainty. I needed the truth, no matter how much it would destroy me. I bought a DNA kit online, my hands shaking as I typed in my credit card details. Swabbing my own cheek felt like a betrayal, but swabbing Leo while he slept felt like a sin. I told him it was for a school science project. The lie tasted like ash in my mouth. 2 weeks later, the envelope arrived. I sat in my car for an hour, the engine off, just staring at it. This was it, the end of my world. I finally tore it open, my vision blurring with unshed tears. I scanned the jargon until I found the conclusion, the words that would define the rest of my life. Probability of paternity, 99.999%. It took a moment to register. He was mine. Leo was my son. A tidal wave of relief washed over me, so powerful it buckled my knees. I had been wrong. I was a monster. I had accused the love of my life, the mother of my child, of the ultimate betrayal, all because of my own insecurity. But the relief was quickly followed by a chilling confusion. If Leo was my son, then what were the secrets? Who was Daniel? Why the lies? The pieces didn't fit. The puzzle was still a chaotic mess, but now the most crucial piece was in the wrong place. A few days later, while packing away some of Sarah's old things in the attic, I found it. An old hairbrush, tangled with long strands of her auburn hair. A dark, ugly thought, An impulse born from the lingering poison of suspicion took hold. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I knew the story wasn't over. I sent her hair and a new sample from Leo to a different lab, this time for a maternity test. The wait was pure agony. When the email with the results finally pinged on my phone, I felt nothing but a cold, hollow dread. I clicked it open. Probability of maternity, 0. 0. The word blinked on the screen, rewriting my entire existence. Leo was my son, but Sarah was not his mother. The world didn't just crack, it exploded into a million pieces. The cheating, the lies, they were a million times worse than I could have ever imagined. That night, I laid both reports on the kitchen table and waited. When Sarah came home, her cheerful greeting died on her lips as she saw my face. She looked at the papers, and the color drained from hers. The fight, the denial, it was all gone. All that was left was the raw, terrifying truth. She collapsed into a chair and confessed everything. 10 years ago, just before we got engaged, I had a one-night stand on a business trip. I was drunk, stupid, and it was a mistake I barely remembered and had buried deep. But the woman, a stranger whose name I never even knew, had gotten pregnant. 9 months later, she died in childbirth from complications. By a 1 in a billion chance, my own sister, a nurse at that hospital, was on duty. She recognized the story from the woman's file, saw my name listed as a potential father, and panicked. She knew I was about to propose to Sarah, so she called her. And Sarah, who had just been told by her doctor that she was infertile and would never be able to have children, saw a desperate, twisted solution. She was terrified of losing me. So they made a pact. My sister falsified records. Sarah faked the final months of a pregnancy for our friends and distant family. They brought my son home from the hospital, and she presented him to me as ours. Our son, Leo. Daniel wasn't a lover, he was a lawyer she'd kept on retainer for a decade, whose job was to make sure the hospital records and the adoption files she'd forged remained buried forever. My life was a lie. My marriage was a fraud. The beautiful family I thought we had built was a carefully constructed cage of deceit, all to trap me. That night, I didn't sleep. I just sat on the floor in Leo's room, watching him. His chest rose and fell in the soft glow of his nightlight. He was my son, my blood, the only truth left in my life. But he was also a living symbol of a betrayal so profound it had stolen 10 years of my life. I loved this boy with every fiber of my being. And I looked at the woman sleeping in our bed, a stranger who had lied with every breath she took, and I felt nothing but a vast, empty canyon where my love used to be.